Welcome to the Grand Subway in the Peterhof Palace. The Narva Triumphal Gate was built to celebrate the Russian victory over Napoleon, and you should go out of the metro just to see the historical structure built between 1827 and 1834 to greet the soldiers who were returning from abroad after their victory over Napoleon. The Navarski station is beautifully built in the neoclassical style, filled with white marble and bronze inserts everywhere. To get there, you have to go down 3 flights of escalators. The escalators run 52 meters deep and are illuminated by highly artistic fixtures, chandeliers topped with metal crown, which is bronze in color, and it is beautiful. This is one of the deepest subways in the world at 282 feet deep. The Navarski station, first it was supposed to be named Plощad Stojic, Square of the Strikes, but the name was changed to Stalinska after Joseph Stalin's death in March 1953. The USSR political structure changed and the station was renamed to Navarski after the Narva Triumphal Gate, located opposite the entrance of the station. The Altova station is one of St. Petersburg favorites. The station is part of the Kravoski-Vengrovsky line and was designed by Y.E.A. Levinson and opened as part of the first metro line back in 1955. What makes Altova unique are highly decorated columns, faces with ornamental glass from the Lavoisier factory. Everything that isn't covered in glass is made of white marble. It gives the station a very rural feeling. At the end of the platform, you can see a mosaic created by V.A. Verdsky and A.K. Sokov that reminds us of the Leningrad Black Gun during the Second World War. Next up, we were driving about an hour into the town of Pushkin to go to the Peterhof and Catherine the Great Palace. And I've separated these videos because there's just so much information. And I'm going to be giving details on information on both of these palaces.
опять и опять. Попытаюсь расставить все точки, попытаюсь понять или даже принять заморочки. 505, 505. Расставаться с тобой я тысяч, но опять и опять. Попытаюсь на сердце я высечь.
Имя любимое мое, твое имена, имя любимое мое и непобедимая. Любовь моя, моя имена, имя любимое твое, мое любимое. Имя любимое мое, твое имена, имя любимое мое и непобедимая. Любовь моя, моя имена, имя любимое твое, мое любимое.
Welcome to the grounds of the Peterhof Palace. It's a series of palaces and gardens located in Peterhof, St. Petersburg, commissioned by Peter the Great and directed response to the Palace of Versailles by Louis the Ninth of France. Originally intending it in 1709 for country habitation, Peter the Great sought to expand the property as a result of his visit to the French royal court in 1717, inspiring the nickname used by tourists of the Russian Versailles. The architect between 1714 and 1728 was Domino Trezzini, and the style he employed became the foundation for the Petrine Barco style favored throughout St. Petersburg. Also in 1714, Jean-Baptiste Alexandre Lebon, likely chosen due to his previous collaborations with Grassi's landscaper Adrian Bonorte, designed the gardens. Francisco Bartolome Ristorelli completed an expansion from 1747 to 1756 for Elizabeth of Russia. The palace ensemble, along with the city center, is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The end of the Great Northern War resulted in a Treaty of Nystad in 1721, ceding much of the Swedish Emperor's claim to the Baltic Sea to the rising Tsardom of Russia. Peter the Great already began construction of his new capital, St. Petersburg, in 1703. After successfully capturing Swedish provinces on the eastern coast, this strategic location allowed Russia access to the Baltic Sea through the Nevi River that flowed to the Gulf of Finland. The island of Kotlin and its fortress Krostok, northeast of St. Petersburg, provided gateway and commercial harbor access, owing to the shallowness of water closer to the city. Throughout the early 18th century, Peter the Great built an expanded Peterhof Palace complex as part of his goal to modernize and westernize Russia. In 1714, Peter began construction of the Montparnasse Palace based on his own sketches. He chalked out not only the site but also the inside layout, some elements of the decorative finish, etc., based in Dutch style. This was Peter's summer retreat, not to be confused with the summer palace that he would use on his way coming and going from Europe through the harbor at Kronstadt. On the walls of the Seacoast Palace hung hundreds of paintings that Peter brought from Europe and allowed to weather Russian winters and dampness of the sea without heat. In the seaward corner of his monster palace, Peter made his maritime study, from which he could see Kronstadt Island to the left and St. Petersburg on the right. Later, he expanded his plans to include a vaster rural chateau of palaces and gardens further inland, on the model of Versailles, which would become Peterhof Palace. The initial design of the palace and its garden was done by the French architect Jean-Baptiste Leblond. The dominant natural feature of Peterhof is 16 meters high, bluff lying less than 100 meters from the shore. The so-called lower gardens at 1.2 kilometers comprising the better part of Peterhof's land area and confined between this bluff and shore, stretching east and west roughly 200 meters. The majority of Peterhof's fountains are contained here, as are several small palaces and outbuildings. East of the lower gardens lies the Alexandra Park, with 19th century Gothic arrival structures such as Capella, Atop the bluff near the middle of the lower gardens stands the Grand Palace. Behind, or south of it, are comparatively small upper gardens. Up on the bluff's face below the palace is the Grand Cascade. This is the Grand Palace and centerpiece of the entire complex. At its foot begins the Sea Channel, one of the most extensive waterworks of the Barco period, which bisects the lower gardens. The Grand Cascade is modeled on one constructed for Louis IX at Château de Marly, which is likewise memorialized in one of the park's outbuildings. At the center of the cascade is an artificial grotto with 2 stories, faceted inside and out with hand-bronze stone, and currently contains a modest museum of the fountain's history. One of the exhibits is a table carrying a bowl of fruit, replica of a similar table built by Peter's direction. The table is rigged with jets of water that soak visitors when they reach for the fruit, and feature the Moneris gardens that remained popular in Germany. The grotto is connected to the palace above and behind by a hidden corridor. The fountains of the Grand Cascade are located below the grotto on either side. There are 64 fountains. Their waters flow into a semicircular pool, the terminus of the fountain line Sea Channel. In the 1730s, the large Samson fountain was placed in this pool. It depicts the moment when Samson tears open the jaws of a lion, representing Russia's victory over Sweden and the Great Northern War, and is doubly symbolic. The lion is an element of Swedish coat of arms and one of the great victories of the war once won in St. Thompson's Day. From the lion's mouth shoots a 20-meter-high vertical jet over water, the highest in all of Peterhof. This masterpiece by Michael Kolosby was looted by the invading Germans during the Second World War. A replica of the statue was installed in 1947. Perhaps the greatest technology achievement of Peterhof is that all of the fountains operate without the use of pumps. Water is supplied from natural springs and collects in reservoirs in the upper gardens. The elevation difference creates the pressure and drives most of the fountains of the lower gardens, including the Grand Cascade. The Samson Fountain is supplied by a special aqueduct over 4 kilometers in length, drawing water and pressure from a high elevation source. The lower gardens. The expense of the lower gardens is designed in the formal style of French formal gardens in the 17th century. Although many trees are overgrown in recent years, formal clippings along many of the alleys assumed in order to restore the original appearance of the garden. The many fountains located here exhibit an unusual degree of creativity. One of the most notable designs is the entitled The Sun. A disc rotated water jets from its edge creates an image of the sun's rays, and the whole structure rotates about vertical axis so that the direction in which the sun faces constantly changing. The Grand Palace is the largest of Peterhof's palaces, looks truly imposing when seen from the lower and the upper gardens. But the fact is, it's quite narrow and not overly large. Of its approximate 30 rooms, several deserve mention. The Chesme Hall is decorated with 12 large paintings of the Battle of Chesme, stunning naval victory over the Russian-Turkish Wars, 1768 to 1774. These were paintings between 1771 and 1773 by the German artist Jacob Philipp Packard. His first renderings of the great battle scenes were criticized by witnesses, not showing realistic the effect of exploding ships. The flying timbers, great flames, smoke, and fireballs. Catherine II assisted the artist by exploding a frigate in the harbor of Livorno, Italy, for the benefit of Packard, who had never seen a naval battle firsthand. Packard also did not research the actual positions of the Russian and Turkish forces during the battle. So the scenes depicted are somewhat fanciful, but do effectively convey drama and destruction of naval warfare. The East and West Chinese cabinets were decorated between 1766 and 1769 to exhibit objects of decorative art imported from the East. The walls were decorated with imitation Oriental patterns by Russian craftsmen. and hung with Chinese landscape paintings in yellow and black lacquer. Another room positioned at the center of the palace bears the name the Peterhof. Its walls are almost entirely covered by a series of 368 paintings, mostly of various dressed women, differing in appearance and even age, yet most were drawn from a single model. These were purchased in 1764 from the window of the Italian artist Peterhof, who died in St. Petersburg. Other features: the Grand Palace is not the only historic building in Peterhof. The palaces of Montpellier and Marly, as well as the pavilion known as the Hermitage, were all raised during the initial construction of Peterhof during the reign of Peter the Great. The lower gardens also contain a large greenhouse, and in the Alexandrian Park stands the Palace of Nicholas I. Like the lower gardens, the upper gardens contain many fountains distributed among 7 broad pools. The landscaping, though, is entirely different, and like the lower gardens, the upper gardens are not strictly generic. A few of the fountains have curious sculptures. History: between 1705 to 1755, in the early 1700s, the original Peterhof appeared quite different from today. Many of the fountains had not yet been installed in the entire Alexandria Park, and upper gardens did not exist. One is now the upper gardens, which used to grow vegetables in its ponds, and numbering only 3 for fish. The Simpson Fountain and its massive pedestal had not yet been installed in the sea channel, and the channel itself was used as a grand marine entrance into the complex. Perhaps the most important change admitting Peter's design was the elevation of the Grand Palace to central status and prominence. The Grand Palace was originally called Upper and was hardly larger than any of the other structures of the complex. The addition of wings undertaken between 1745 to 1755 was one of the many projects commissioned from the Italian architect Bartolomeo Rostoli by Elizabeth of Russia. Likewise, the Grand Cascade was more sparsely decorated than initially built. The augmentation of Peterhof's original fountains and the addition of new ones continued well into the 19th century. 1941 to modern day, Peterhof, like Karski Selo, was captured by German troops in 1941 and held until 1944, and the few months that elapsed between German invasion of the Soviet Union and the appearance of the German army, employees were only able to save a portion of the treasures of the palaces and fountains. An attempt was made to dismantle and bury the fountain sculptures, but 3/4, including all of the largest ones, remain in place. On September 23, 1941, German troops captured Peterhof. 2 weeks later, on October 5, 1941, Soviet troops tried to recapture the town and block the highway by naval landing. 502 Marines of the Soviet Baltic Fleet landed on the beach neighboring the Park of Alexandria, but faced heavy fire from the Germans. One landing craft was sunk and another one missed. Despite Soviet attempts, the covered landing forces by coastal artillery were constant. They were quickly
опять попытаюсь расставить все точки, попытаюсь понять или даже принять заморочки. 505, 505, расставался с тобой я тысяч, но опять попытаюсь на сердце я высечь. Любовь моя,
Imя